Welcome. In front of me I have the almost brand new Asus Zenfone 9, and I'll go over unboxing along with a quick overview of this phone. Now the reason why I say almost new is because it came out I think like a couple months ago already. So I'm a little bit late here, but still, I just pop it open. Sorry for that. Okay, so that's basically all we get in the box with the device. Now let's boot it up. I'll quickly mention right off the bat, it is a small device, as you probably already expected that. It's a 5.9-inch display. The camera bump rate here actually varies, as you can see. This one is higher than this one, and the lenses here are just absolutely massive. Now in terms of like this design on the side, at first glance it kind of felt like a cheap like one of those cheap rugged phones, because it's a little bit thicker than you might expect, and it just looked a little bit wonky, but actually just looking at it right now, it looks kind of okay. I do actually dig the style. I remember I seen photos of this, and like the reddish color doesn't look too great, at least in my opinion. This, on the other hand side, it has like this matte rubberized, maybe not rubberized, I don't even know how to describe this texture, but it feels nice to touch. Obviously it almost leaves, well, almost no fingerprints, and it just looks, I would say, actually quite nice. It's one of the phones that I actually was thinking about picking up myself, and now looking at it, actually I'm a little bit bummed out that I didn't. Anyway, I just quickly go to the setup, and while I actually do so, I'm gonna go over the display right here that you can see. So this is a 5.9-inch display, like I mentioned already. It's a 1080p by 2400 pixels, so for such a small display, this is actually a really good display, really dense. It comes at 441 pixels per inch, so that is really good. It has 120 Hz refresh rate, HDR10 Plus, along with peak brightness of 1100 nits. And with that in mind, that's actually a really good display. Now let's see, smart key next. I don't want to sign into anything, so I'm just going to skip most of this, just so I can show you the home screen, which, there we go. So here we go. So it looks like it's running a fairly stock version of Android. I think Asus does include a couple of things that is specific to their kind of brand. Primarily, from what I remember, it's usually in the battery section. There's a bunch of additional settings, so let's see if we have anything like that in here. So we have system mode. So we already have several different modes for running this device, and it is running a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, so the newest Snapdragon on the market. And we have a couple of versions of RAM. So we have either 8 gigs of RAM at the very base version of it with 128 gigs or 256 gigs of storage, and then you can bump it up to 16 gigs with 256 gigs of storage. All of them running a UFS 3.1 storage, so it's going to be really fast. So yeah, like I mentioned, fairly stock Android with just a couple additional things from Asus themselves, which it's not, I wouldn't consider that a bloatware by any means. It's just additional options in the settings and features that you might find useful or you might never use. It really depends on the user, but it's not like any kind of bloatware I would call, or at least I wouldn't call it. There we go. Now, if we flip it over to the back, you will see the dual camera setup. So the main sensor is a 50 megapixel wide sensor with f1.9, and it has a PDAF, so image stabilization. We have also a 12 megapixel ultra wide under that, f2.2. So both cameras pretty okay. Can't complain about that. We have a, I think, fingerprint sensor on the side, though it doesn't really look like it. But it did prompt me to set it up on the side, so I assume that's a fingerprint. We have a, I would say, a decent sized battery in here. So this is it's rocking a 4300 milliamp hour battery. For such a small device, this is a relatively decent battery. Just for comparison, I'm gonna bring out my phone, which has a 4000 and I think 400 milliamp hour battery. So it's the Fold, and you can kind of see the size comparison. So it is definitely bigger in almost every kind of aspect of it, and it has barely any bigger battery. Now, additionally, even though it might have a, in general, not the biggest battery at 4300, it's running the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, so that processor itself is not as power hungry as the previous ones. So you'll get a decent battery saving just from the processor itself. So the battery should be fine on this device. It should be, in theory, really good. Now, moving on, we have obviously everything that you'd expect from what I would consider kind of a flagship device. So we have all the gyroscopes and all that stuff. As you can see, where is it? NFCs, if I can actually find it. Obviously everything that you'd expect from a modern phone, a device, or modern time device. And we do have something that is kind of odd on especially a phone that size, which is a headphone jack. Would you look at that? It actually can be fit on super small devices. With this phone actually having a headphone jack, I don't see how Apple cannot manage to fit a damn headphone jack in their iPhones. Apart from just because we're making a progress, innovation. So yeah. And now let's move over to the chargings. So 4300 milliamp hour. As you've probably seen, I did kind of point it out. The battery, or not the battery, the charger has a 30 watt capacity or charging speed, and the device has basically USB power delivery 3.0, so it should also reverse charge with a cable, different things. It's not really showing, well, I don't really see advertised charging speeds, but 30 watts with such a battery size, it should give you a top out full battery in probably about an hour, so that should be really good. And it looks like we don't have any kind of wireless charging. I'm gonna test it out though. I do have a pad under the display a little bit off the camera, so just bear with me. But yeah, I don't really see there is no wireless charging here, so that's a little bit of a bummer. And yeah, I think that would kind of sum up the device. I'm not going to go like super in depth, as you probably are aware from just watching it this far, if you even managed to watch it this far. So yeah, just to finish this off, this is the successor to the Zenfone 8, which was a previous version of it. Also a small device at, I think it was 5.8 inch display, so a little bit smaller, or 0.1 smaller, so that's not that much, but yeah. The previous one was, I would say, way cheaper. Anyway, it costed about $500 US, while this one comes at 700 about US dollars. So they did bump up the price quite significantly, and they did include decent cameras that, unlike on the previous one, look good. They're not like misplaced like the previous ones was. The previous one had this, like a bezel around the cameras, but it was off-centered in every possible way, and for every kind of OCD person, that would drive them most likely insane, like it was driving me. So luckily they changed it right here. Nicely done. And apart from that, the only kind of differences between those two phones is the previous one was running Snapdragon 888. This one is running the newest one, like I mentioned before. And the price, and that's primarily it. Most of the internals will be relatively the same, as in the system, the Android operating system. It's going to have obviously a newer version of Android, this one, compared to the previous one. I don't think the previous one is running on the newest one. This is running on system, we should have, there we go, Android 12. Now, this phone most likely will also have an update to Android 13. I'll mention this right now. This is just kind of like a side note here. Previous Zenphones did have access to the beta versions of Android. So the Zenfone 8 was one of those that could access the beta versions, along with a couple additional phones. So you could have just pre-installed it way earlier if you wanted to play around with the actual new Android. And maybe you can do that same thing here. I haven't checked it, so I guess time will tell here. But yeah, so anyway, just to close this off in a way, it's a really nice device, small phone. If you're looking for something that has a really small footprint in your pocket, doesn't create a massive bulge in your pants, and it's still relatively feature rich, there you go, that's a phone. And I think I'm going to do one last thing, which is just put on a cover for everybody to see how it looks like with a cover. Now it is plastic, so keep that in mind. And there we go. Honestly, it doesn't change the appearance of the phone much. So, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.